After realizing that humanity was dying out, a group of scientists, geneticists, froze several generations of young people, not realizing that without proper education, they would be reborn as sterile slave laborers. Merciless exploitation of nature, thoughtless attitude of people to their planet led to the fact that it began to take revenge on mankind. And it started with the one who was the hope for a bright future, with children. Scientists from all corners of the planet tried to find a way out and stop child mortality, to develop a project called Legacy to save mankind from total extinction. One day, friends and colleagues gather in the house of the Gordievs, who work as bioenergetic specialists, to celebrate the birthday of their daughter Anya, who turns 11. And this is a very important date, as most children do not live to 12. But suddenly, the girl becomes ill, and she loses consciousness. Sometime later, Anya wakes up in a separate bunker to the greeting of her parents, who talk to her through a screen. The girl brushes her teeth, eats breakfast, and listens to her parents' promise to pick her up after the quarantine is over. But suddenly, the bunker begins to shake. The lights go out, and a dark figure appears in front of the girl, who turns out to be a boy named Maxim, who explains that her parents, as well as the rest of the scientists, live in the central bunker. Anya's individual bunker was supposed to open in a couple weeks, but the earthquake has disrupted the system, so she is not welcomed. However, he is willing to walk her to the location. Soon, the couple stops for the night. The exhausted girl falls asleep, and Maxim pulls out a photo of Anya from his pocket and is convinced that it is her. In the morning, they move on. Anya does not understand what has happened to the world and why everything around is in ruins. But Maxim promises that she will find out everything at the base. Soon, they find the same bunker where Anya lived and rescue its inhabitant, Artem. He was eating berries and mushrooms, which his mother and father showed him on the screen, but it was not enough, and the boy became weak. Hearing this, Maxim goes to the river, hoping to catch a fish, but he slips and falls into the water. Anya and Artem, not waiting for him, go further. But suddenly they see a dark figure, rush to run and get caught by a company of young people who call them the third generation. At this time, Maxim gets ashore, finds two skeletons with things lying next to them, and loses consciousness. The last thing he sees is the dark silhouette of a man. Opening his eyes, Maxim recognizes Pyotr Titov, who gives him hot tea, and remembers how many years ago the Scientific Council chose the Gordievs program to save humanity over his, although Titov was supposed to be the consultant and chief assistant. The humans were going to immerse a group of scientists in hypersleep so they could restore humanity. However, the question of whether the test tube babies would become real humans was not tested. Meanwhile, Anya and Artem are brought to the settlement, where Lydia is in charge of everything. Anya behaves independently, which pleases the commander, and she gives the girl a gift. She allows her to leave her name while everyone gets serial numbers. Lydia explains that there have been no scientists for 100 years, and all of them are the last hope of mankind. The newcomers are brought into the dormitory. In the morning, Lydia is informed that the children of the third generation have started to come out. They need to be met and settled, and best of all, separately from the second. It would be good to start the development of nearby cities, but Titov was seen nearby, and the girl orders to strengthen security. At this time, the scientist tells Maxim that the first generation has rebelled and killed all his colleagues. Only he managed to escape from the bunker he had built and from the people he had created. The first ones turned everything into hell. Slavery is back. Barbarism is thriving. He intends to end it, and Maxim will be one of those who will help to correct the program. But to do this, he needs to get into the bunker. The next day, Titov sends Maxim to the settlement of the first, but when he sees the things he found, he changes his plans. Meanwhile, Lydia summons Rat and offers to work for her if he wants to survive. After seeing the guy off, she remembers how the doctor approved of her relationship with Ivan because they are the hope of humanity, while the other guys are being trained by Ryabov's survival mentor and the scientists are regretting the hopeless tests. It's lunchtime. David resents the scientists imposing on him the girl he should be having a relationship with, but Lydia tries to convey to him that this is the basis of their survival. Healthy offspring is the most important thing to them. Later, at one of the training sessions, Ryabov shows the youth a rabbit and explains that those who wish to survive must be able to kill. He orders Luca to kill the rabbit, but the boy can't do it. And then Nick comes forward and kills the animal, which draws the approval of the mentor. Later, Luca tells everything to Mikhail, a psychologist who explains to the guy that, strange as it may seem, all people are different, and they need to learn to understand that. The man is concerned about the confined space in which young people are growing up, but Titov is confident that the second and third generations will come out while they are still alive, which means that scientists will be able to ensure that the first ones are treated properly. And now, Titov holds in his hands a map of the site, which was once taken by two engineers who had to destroy the mountain to save the bunker. At that time, the specialists had managed to place sensors by which Titov monitored the position. Now he realized that things are worse than expected, and soon they are waiting for a big earthquake from which the mountainside will collapse, burying under itself the third generation and thus all the hopes of mankind. To prevent this from happening, the mine must be blown up, releasing the stress of the rocks, but it requires detonators, which are in the locked bunker after the rebellion of the first ones. At this time, Anya recalls a history lesson on the Roman Empire and speaks out against the slave lifestyle, unaware that discontent has long been brewing among the seconds. And today, the fifth gives the fourth poisonous berries, which he must mix into the first's food. Later, the guy slips them into the basket, but when checking, Nos finds them. The fifth manages to get rid of his pile. Anya steps on it with her foot, and the executioners take away only the fourth. Later, Nos and Nick interrogate him, but the guy won't say who plotted the poisoning and is sentenced to death, which comes as a shock to Anya. Later, a signal is sounded over the town that means execution. 4 is led to the scaffold. Lydia pleads treason, and the boy goes down the mine. The scene of the movie moves to the past, when Maxim lived in a bunker, and one day he confesses to a psychologist that he constantly sees the same girl in his dreams. Titov orders to increase the dosage of drugs, otherwise the guy may lose his mind. During the blood donation, he dutifully takes the pills and steals the doctor's pass, after which he hurries to the restroom and gets rid of the medicine. At night, the guy explores the bunker and meets Ivan in the corridor. He asks to keep his nocturnal adventures secret and manages to hide to central control, where he enters the system and learns the secret of the first, while the psychologist realizes that his memories of the girl are a phantom memory. Meanwhile, geneticists inform Titov that the first ones are infertile. Stuttberg reminds that according to the protocol, they should be destroyed and start the program anew. But Titov is furious because these are people. With the second and third, they will solve this problem, but the first must be treated. At night, Maxim sneaks back into central control, finds a photo of Anya in Titov's locker, and realizes that he saw her in his dreams and visions. And then he sees on the video surveillance screen how Igor's corpse is being anatomized and takes it for murder. He sneaks into the warehouse and packs up his camping gear, but then decides to tell everything to Ivan, in whose bed Lydia has fallen asleep. After learning that the scientists have sewed Igor, the couple is horrified. Maxim urges them to make an escape, but Ivan is not ready for such a step because it is necessary to warn the others. Maxim leaves the plans he made for the bunker and the pass, and advising them to go to the morgue, leaves. And so, after a while, the guy returns to the settlement of the first, where he is welcomed by Lydia because only thanks to him they stopped being guinea pigs. Meanwhile, the other two are working in abandoned houses, collecting what might be useful, and one of them hides a knife. After work, Anya treats her friends to the food she has found and tells them about Spartacus's rebellion, urging them to escape. The boys are afraid, but Anya reminds them that no one has the right to take away a person's name and offers to get to know each other anew. The other two give their real names except for one who was and wants to remain the first in his generation. Meanwhile, Maxim comes to the executioner and asks him to help him get into the bunker, but the latter is not sure that this is the main task. Nos is also interested in the purpose of Maxim's visit, especially since he is sure that the guy knows Anya, the time before the rebellion of the first. Lydia is shocked by what they have learned from Maxim, not noticing that Nos is awake and hears their conversation. After that, Ivan goes to the morgue, finds Igor's corpse, and tells the first about everything. The guys decide to escape, but for this, they need to think out a plan well. Meanwhile, Titov discovers that Igor had not neuralgia at all, but a real genetic malfunction, and it's a consequence of the rush. Lydia comes to the Dr. Polina and expresses everything she thinks about her lies. She is surprised that the girl has learned the truth and is forced to confirm it, but she promises to fix everything. Present. The second disarms the guard and escapes, and although Artem sees the escape, he doesn't give away his comrades. The boys are moving away away from the settlement and stop for a rest when Artem catches up with them and tells Anya that Lydia is holding 2 scientists behind bars. She believes that they are her parents and goes back, asking to look after Artem. But the first kicks the kid out. Meanwhile, Lydia takes alcohol and remembers how Alexander taught her to brew moonshine, while Noz goes to a psychologist and admits that the former knows about their infertility, and therefore they are not needed by nature or the future. And having expressed this, Nos kills the psychologist. At this time, Lydia finishes her work listening to Alexander's instructions and goes to show off the assembled stove to her friends, who are just studying the topic of survival in the forest. Ryabov shows how to use a fire stove when Lydia distracts the captain by setting him up for the executioner's knife. At the same time, a girl with a knife enters the workshop, but Alexander arranges an arson attack and pops outside himself, leaving the killer inside. Ivan orders everyone to run, sparing no scientists when the fire alarm goes off. The corridors are in turmoil. The smoke makes it difficult to see who is friend and who is foe, and some scientists are killed. Titov wounds the armed Ivan, while Alexander tries to launch Plan B, which will destroy everyone inside. Lydia, realizing this, picks up the screwdriver. Later, the rest of the group makes their way out, but Ivan lacks strength and remains in Titov's smoke-filled and blocked bunker. The guy comes to his senses in the lab. It turns out that 2 scientists survived and saved him, but none of them can get out. But another bunker appears, in which apparently the Gordeev family is still sleeping. Ivan blames Titov and his friends for Igor's death, which is what started all this horror. But Olga says that none of them knew that in fact the management ordered to run Gordeev's program, not Titov. So the mistake was not his. Present. Lydia shows the imaginary Alexander the generator she has assembled when the escape of the seconds is discovered. The executioner sends Luca to find them before a squad of the first finds them. Nos drags Anya to Lydia, and the girl accuses her of tyranny. How can you take away everything from people and be surprised by their disobedience? Lydia orders the execution of the disobedient. The former converge towards the scaffold, remembering how their environment had become disjointed after their escape. That's when Nos urged Lydia to take over, and she had to take charge. She now sends David's squad to search for the latter, while Luca tells Titov about the escape. The fugitives get farther away, while Anya is put on the scaffold. Lydia accuses her when Maxim sees the girl and rushes to her aid. He is outraged by the behavior of the former, for they fled the bunker to build a new world and turned into murderers. At that moment, the board under Anya folds up. Maxim grabs her while the guard fires an arrow at him, but it hits the executioner and he releases the rope, allowing the bodies to fall into the shaft. Later, after dressing down, the executioner tasks Fifth to find out where Lydia is hiding the scientists, and Maxim and Anya remain alive as they fall on a pile of bodies. The boy takes her out of the city through an underground passage. The girl learns that Titov is alive, and the executioner tracks down Nos at the cell with bars, frees Polina and Stuttberg, and leads them out of the city. Meanwhile, the second stops to rest in the forest, but the first falls asleep on watch and misses the appearance of David's troop. The latter rush to escape. The former, despite Lydia's order to take them alive, open fire. The survivors run out to the river, where Titov is waiting for them. He sets off an explosion, cutting off David's squad from the fugitives and leading them away. At this time, Anya and Maxim meet the rescued scientists. Meanwhile, Nos blames Fifth for their escape and shows her interrogation to the executioner, while Polina discovers that Anya is perfectly healthy after waking up, which means that the hypersleeper is curing. At this time, Maxim leads the scientists to Titov, but almost at the very bunker, Polina is hit by a self-shot. Realizing there is no other way out, Stuttberg distracts the guards. The bunker door opens on Anya's genetic year, and the group manages to run in, but the man is captured. Polina doesn't manage to reach the doctors in time and dies of blood loss. Anya and Maxim are very surprised by the living Ivan and tell about what Lydia is doing. The scientists decide to go and talk to her, but Ivan is the first to go. Seeing her beloved, the girl forgets everything, while the executioner visits the Fifth and reports Ivan's return, which he considers a good sign. In the morning, Maxim and Anya go to Titov's bunker. On the way, the girl confesses that she has known the scientist since childhood and that he had a son. Titov, seeing the girl, hugs her and cries with happiness, while Lydia again talks to an imaginary Alexander who persuades her not to give in to pity. The scientist, meanwhile, prepares homemade bombs to destroy the mountain and save the bunker, while Lydia prepares a berry drink for Ivan. The guy intends to tell the first doctors who gathered under the balcony the whole truth, but as he begins to speak, he suddenly feels ill. Lydia intercepts the speech when the guy falls from a height and dies. The doctor rushes to him and announces that the boy is poisoned. But it is the scientists who Lydia blames for his death and orders them killed. She shouts slogans while the imaginary Alexander praises her, and the executioner opens the bars on 5th and Stuttberg's cell doors and asks them to escape while he finishes something. In the evening, Ivan's body is placed on the pyre. Lydia recalls the traditions of the ancients about slaves dying with their master and orders to cite the 5th. The executioner cannot give himself away and watches as his girl is tied to a pole above Ivan's pyre. Lydia hands the torch to him, and he, looking into the eyes of his beloved, nevertheless brings it to the kindling. Later, Titov sets a task for the two: to get into the mine and plant explosives. Maxim opposes Anya's trip to the mountains, but the scientist suddenly admits that the lives of these two are more important than the lives of the others, which causes a storm of rage in the guy. Titov recalls how he was persuaded to participate in the project when he was out of grief after the death of his son. The action moves to the beginning of the experiment when Titov summarizes the results of the failed experiment and announces that he intends to launch his program to save humanity. In the past, he could not test it on cloning because it was forbidden by ethics. But now, the situation is very different, and he will be a DNA donor which will undergo improvement. Scientists begin the experiment and create a clone of Titov. In the present, Lydia orders David to bring Titov and the Gordeev family to her, and his group makes the trek at the same time as Titov's group goes to the mine to be blown up. And the executioner finds the Gordeev's bunker, but cannot open it. At this time, Nos accuses Lydia of killing Ivan, which destroys their community and leaves the former. Nick, realizing that now everything is allowed, sits down in Lydia's chair and reminds her that he is the head of her security. The rest of them are having a coven in the former commander's rooms, and she remembers the first time she left the bunker. Then, she wanted to make everyone else's life happy, and now she's been betrayed. But then, one of the guards announces that she has arrested Nick. That same evening, the strongest earthquake in recent times occurred. Titov's group stops for a rest, and when they do reach the mine, it turns out that the first has lost the fuses. The scientist sends the guys to search for them, and while he himself proceeds to lay the checkers, they get to the detachment of the first. The guys suddenly put up serious resistance. Luca rushes to the rescue and shoots most of the first while the second fights back. The first gets wounded. Luca takes David in his crosshairs as Titov says goodbye to Anya and Maxim and asks everyone to leave, promising to catch up with the guys soon. Meanwhile, the latter stops for a rest. Anya and Maxim go outside as Titov manually undermines the mine. The former suddenly confesses that despite the constant quarrels, he has always considered his rival a friend. He gives his name, Anton, and dies, and Maxim suddenly begins to remember things he couldn't have known, namely Titov's experience and skills, and how the clone was created. The pair go to the bunker and meet Stuttberg at the door. He shows the girl a program that portrayed her parents, and Anya, realizing that they are long gone, goes to Lydia. Now she realizes that the first ones are not to blame. They've been fooled instead of discovering the truth right away. But soon, the next generations will emerge from the bunkers, and Stuttberg will help them. The scientist at this time is forced to confess to Maxim that once people were affected by hemophilia. Titov had it too. The Gordeev's program suggested creating a new generation from healthy DNA, but Titov suggested using a sick but corrected gene. But the Gordeev's program was chosen. Then Titov conducted a parallel experiment, and from his DNA they made Maxim, so he's a clone of Titov. And then, Stuttberg suddenly grabs his heart, tricking Maxim into taking his genetic material. As the guy steps away from the paralyzer, a group of the remaining first to enter the bunker. Stuttberg notices this, locks the group in one of the corridors and destroys them with gas, then receives a cryptic message that a rescue team has arrived. Past. Titov finds among his papers a letter from Alexander Gordeev, who writes that Anya was sick and his wife was ready to do anything to save his daughter. Hope given by Titov's research. They wanted to immerse the three of them in cryostasis and let him conduct research as he saw fit. They even had a separate bunker made for them. But the day before, the girl fell ill. Now they can't save their daughter, so they go into cryo capsules with only one hope: him. Things have all the necessary biomaterials and their family archive so that Anya grew up kind, intelligent, and honest. Present. Luca gathers the remaining second and suggests that they take refuge in the mountains to meet the third and prevent them from being made slaves. Just then, Nos enters the gate. He has found them to inform them that not only are they not alone on Earth, but they are not even the first. After all, people were dying all over the world, not just in Russia. And clearly, these programs weren't just here. So we need to look for the others. Meanwhile, Anya prepares arrows and questions Lydia about the reasons for her rebirth, but she is sure that it is all the fault of the scientists who failed to create a normal world. Meanwhile, Luca, the leader of the remaining seconds, assures Nos that they will no longer have rulers and they will decide everything together. Maxim, on the other hand, goes to look for Anya, while Stuttberg takes DNA tests from the dead first to raise a new generation. Later, Anya and Lydia go to the new bunker, where, as the woman assures Gordievs are, and Anya asks to tell about Ivan because Lydia needs to learn to be human, because no scientists forced her to torture and kill. The couple reaches the bunker, not knowing that David and Maxim are following their footsteps, and the executioner has long been waiting for them on the spot. And then it turns out that Lydia brought the girl here to kill her in front of her parents, intending to pay for what was done to her. The executioner grabs Lydia while Anya hides in the bunker. He is ready to throw her into the abyss when her face turns into fifths, but he pulls himself together and pushes the girl away. He is immediately attacked by David. After a fierce fight, David wounds the executioner, but he still throws him down after Lydia. Maxim tries to help the executioner, and he manages to confess that he couldn't die because he was needed to continue the program for some reason, but he didn't escape, and he dies. At this time, Anya goes down into the bunker and finds 3 cryo chambers. Her mum wakes up in the first one. Then the lid of the second one clicks, and the girl sees herself. And the seconds resting in the clearing see a squad of armed firsts surrounding them and look in wonder at the faces of long-dead friends and foes, and themselves. Anya leaves the bunker without waiting for her father to wake up. Maxim catches up with her and the pair walk away. The lights come on in the first bunker. The cryo chamber opens and Polina wakes up, Titov. They don't yet know what year it is or where the Gordievs are, but soon everyone will be ready to go. The new representatives of the human race face a rather difficult question. Who is a human being and what kind of thinking he should have, which is reflected in the slogan of the series, "You are not born a human being." Are people without a huge number of similar people around, without upbringing in a family, without usual kindergartens, schools, and universities able to become human beings? Or is all this already inherent in nature? Let us know in the comments.